I love surprises, and today I'm being surprised in a remarkable way. I've come to New Orleans to check out this Ferrari 599 GTB Fiorano, which is for sale currently on Cars and Bids courtesy of Car by Motor Cars. But we're going to use this car to do some exploration. Not far from here is the world's longest bridge, which in itself is a surprise, and we're going to use this 612 horsepower Ferrari to test its GT capabilities and check out the world's longest bridge. But while we're in New Orleans, we will also use this car to check out some of the surprises that this city has to offer. And with that, let's go for a drive. GTB Fiorano. Now, I wanted to come to New Orleans to drive this car specifically for a couple of reasons. The main one being that it is not perfect. And as you can hear, there's like an electrical buzz in it. Again, it isn't perfect, but it's about how it drives. And I've been so curious about these cars because they just have been unappreciated in the market compared to the 550 or even the F12 that came after it. These cars have just kind of languished, and I think that's kind of unfair because at the end of the day, this is a 612 horsepower naturally aspirated V12 front engine Ferrari that's relatively uncommon and kind of bridges the gap between classic and modern. That's why we've come all the way to New Orleans to drive this particular example. Plus in Tour de France blue with a tan interior. Boy, it is just a beautiful object to look at. And I'm really excited. And of course, today is not a perfect day either. It's raining. And so I'm actually going to use the rain mode, which I've never done in a Ferrari that has a Manatino switch. And I'm just really into it. Like, I think this car, I'm just so excited to explore this car today. And it also, admittedly, New Orleans is not the best place to drive a car like this. The roads are not great. There are not a lot of curves. So I'm just kind of curious how it deals with just being used like a car. And that's what we're going to find out. And we're going to get some beignets. Right away, my initial impressions are the car drives really well. The F1 system is my biggest interest in this car because I'm curious about how bad it is. Everybody complains about these systems, and these cars ultimately can be swapped to manuals these days. But is it really worth doing? Is this system so bad? And so far, just driving around in traffic, honestly, if you're mechanically sympathetic and you're used to driving a manual and you understand how a clutch would be automated, it's really not that bad. It's pretty intuitive. And as long as you know that the car wants to get off the clutch as quickly as it can, and you put it in situations where it can do that, where you're not going to ride the clutch constantly, it actually seems to be okay so far. Ultra low speed stuff when parking these is a challenge, but once you're moving a bit, like, honestly, I don't find it to be that distracting or intrusive or that bad. The other thing that strikes me right away is the ride quality. Again, the roads in New Orleans are bad, even the highways are pretty rough, but honestly, it rides pretty well. The suspension really was the biggest advancement that Ferrari made with the 599 because it got the magnetic dampers, and they just offer such comfort when they want to be comfortable, and as you go up the settings in the Manatino, they become stiffer. But they're very well suited to the GT car experience, and I've been extremely comfortable even driving over crappy roads. And this car also isn't on its factory wheels anymore. It's on 599 GTO wheels, which I think are slightly larger. I mean, there's slightly less sidewall and less travel, but the car still feels very comfortable to me. But underneath it all, a 612 horsepower V12. All right, we've got a little bit of open road, so I want to experience the V12. So here we go. Just give it a little squeeze. Wow. Wow. That is amazing. Man, when you start climbing the RPMs, it just goes. And I do have to say, the transmission really does kind of, it really slunks it into gear. But, man, this car is just phenomenal. The drivetrain is amazing. The transmission is definitely not the smoothest when you're really on it, though. You kind of get like one of those, but it's almost charming in a way. It's like, it's just kind of how this car is, but boy howdy, this engine, Jesus. Wow. Good Lord Almighty. That's special. That is special. And here we are, the whole reason we've really come here to drive this bridge, the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway, the longest continuous bridge over water in the world. Built in the late 1950s, this bridge is 23.875 miles long, and it goes across Lake Pontchartrain, hence the name. And this lake, although it's not particularly deep, which is why they were able to do this. It has an average depth of about 14 to 15 feet. So they were able to build this crazy long bridge as a result. And so admittedly, while this car's capabilities far exceed driving in a straight line across a bridge, it feels good to drive something that is so capable and cool over what is a bizarre bridge. And it reminds me of that Top Gear episode where they drove to France just to drive over that bridge. Maybe a little bit less elegant, but nonetheless, really cool to do it in a 599. I really just want to take it on a road trip. It's just so nice to cover a big, real distance in this thing. It would be absolutely phenomenal. The other thing I'll say about the 599 has to do with its looks. I didn't always like the way this car looked, particularly the rear. I think it looked very bulbous. It's kind of grown on me as time has gone on. I'm not sure why. It just looks very unique compared to all the other V12 front-engine Ferraris. It's its own thing. And also, unlike the 550, which was iterated on, and the Testarossa, which had a bunch of different versions too, the 599 was it. Yes, they did the special edition GTO and they did the SA Aperta 2, but there was no like chassis based on the 599. It was replaced by the F12, which was a completely different car, and then the 812 on top of that, which was a different car on its own. But the 599 really is its own special thing. And it was also the first V12 Ferrari, anyway, that I remember being new when I was a kid. I grew up during the era of this car, so for me, it kind of has a soft spot. And just given how the market values these cars, it's just become increasingly appealing as time has gone on. This car also doesn't have belts to service. This V12 is completely different from the one in the 550 and 575. It's chain driven, and again, Enzo derived, which every 599 owner will tell you. But it's just a really compelling car. Other things I like about the 599, I think this is one of Ferrari's best interiors. It's a great combination of analog because you have the analog dials with just the needles. It looks really great. There are a lot of buttons. There's an engine start button to press, which I can't believe is something that is gone by the wayside now with modern Ferraris. But it feels modern enough. You do have a screen that looks dated, but it gives you good information. And the build quality of this feels much more modern Ferrari compared to the 550. This is a nice place to spend a lot of time. Of course, again, it's not perfect. There are some sticky switches in here, like all Ferraris seem to get. But even so, in these carbon fiber backed sports seats, I feel so comfortable. You can see why this car would just be so much fun to take on long road trips. And again, thanks to its mileage, I don't really think you're going to devalue it. All right. Bridge done. We have established that the 599 can cruise very well in a straight line. But now we're going to do something that most Ferrari owners would never dream of, and that is take it into New Orleans. New Orleans has a lot of very bad roads and twisty stuff too, but that's what this car is for. It's supposed to be driven and it's supposed to be used. So we're going to drop a couple of gears and take this thing into New Orleans. Drive into the French Quarter of New Orleans, one of the coolest parts of the city. Of course, everybody knows that this city was founded by the French. It was later taken over by the Spanish, and then it became part of the United States when we acquired Louisiana and the Louisiana Purchase. But the French Quarter has always remained a really special part of New Orleans because it's this unique blend of French and Spanish and Creole influence. So it's a really cool part of the city, and naturally this is sort of the place everybody comes when they visit New Orleans. And now we're doing it in a 599. And so this means a lot of slow driving. And again, it's raining, so there's a lot of puddles that we're splashing through. It's basically every Ferrari owner's worst nightmare. 599 just seems to be doing it. I have it in wet mode, which does seem to smooth out the shifts and just takes a little bit more time with them, which makes the car a lot more usable and just generally more comfortable in this sort of situation. But the car's been doing great. It hasn't run into any foibles that I wouldn't approach with a normal car. You just have to be aware that you have a long nose and it's relatively low, so if you see puddles, just be cautious they're not too deep. But really, the 599 is doing a great job. One of the other things I like about this car is it doesn't seem to get as much attention as you would in like a mid-engine V8 Ferrari. Nobody really looks at this car. It's pretty under the radar. It does look different than a normal car, but it doesn't scream Ferrari. It doesn't say 599 anywhere on the outside of it. Yes, there are Ferrari logos here and there. This one does have aftermarket shields on the side, but it didn't come with those. You can take those off and then you have really just the Ferrari logo on the front, the Ferrari logo on the grille, the Ferrari logo on the back. Outside of that, really doesn't say anything else. And I think that is one of the appeals of this car, is it's pretty subtle, so you don't have to deal with the negative attention that are around a lot of Ferraris. You can kind of just drive it and enjoy it yourself. Now, of course, you and I recognize it as a Ferrari, but to that end also, enthusiasts don't really see these cars that often. They weren't particularly common because Ferrari started producing this car right as the recession hit, and so they didn't sell all that many of them. So it's a pretty rare sight, generally speaking, but especially these days after many years of attrition, almost 20 years later. I also have to say, we've been driving the car for several hours now in a variety of different circumstances. The temperature's exactly where they're supposed to be. The car is just really usable. I'm not exactly surprised at that, but I'm very nicely gratified knowing that my thoughts about this car were correct, that it is an incredibly usable Ferrari. And that just makes it so much better. This is one you want to use anyway. I will say though that just because this car is a GT car does not mean that it is soft necessarily. Driving it around through all these bumps, you certainly feel them and it gets jostled around a bit. But in general, the car is not unlivable in this situation. Does it like being driven in the city? It's not its preference. It certainly prefers the open highway, but it can do it, and it can do it with relative ease. How amazing is that? A guy just playing the saxophone walking along. Man, welcome to New Orleans. That's amazing. It's time to go and get something to eat. Now, being in New Orleans, I have a hankering for a po' boy, so we're gonna go find one in the city, have something tasty to eat. Oh, I hit the spot. Damn. That was good. So dang good. I don't know, there is something cool about using a Ferrari in a city. Hearing it echo off the buildings, that's pretty special. That's pretty cool. Despite hearing the constant buzz of the sound system, when you do hear the engine echo off stuff, man, it's just spectacular. Oh, that's another cool thing about cities, is when you can see the reflection of the car off of the glass. Man, it looks good. Bourbon Street is used to hearing a lot of music, but not a lot of V12s drive through here on a day-to-day basis, I suspect. Interestingly enough, the street isn't actually named after bourbon, the drink, like you might think. It's named after the Bourbon family, a French ruling family. And again, this whole place is French, so it makes sense that it was named that way. But nonetheless, it's one of the most iconic places to stop, and we're going to drive the 599 through it because we have to. We're here, and it's so cool. Oh, no way. Oh, that's too cool. Guess I'm not the only one driving an exotic today. Bourbon Street. The Storado is much better for it, I think. The added suspension travel, I think, would be beneficial. It certainly wouldn't hurt. Driving the French Quarter has been not as bad as I was expecting. I was expecting the car to be really crashy and the transmission to be really, but it's been actually very, I would say, pretty refined, like very surprisingly so. You just have to pay careful attention to the roads, and the tight quarters are not the problem for the car. It's the pedestrians you have to look out for, wandering everywhere and doing whatever they want. Be very cautious about pedestrians, but other than that, the car seems very at home. Not too bad for a 612 horsepower Ferrari. Time for beignets, and the best beignets, of course, are located deep in the French Quarter. So excited, here we go. Well, that was fantastic. What a way to cap that experience. What an amazing day. From the longest bridge in the world to the tight streets of New Orleans, the 599 did it all. And although this one is blue, the key is still red, and it delivers the Ferrari experience way better than I could have possibly imagined. And you can buy this one on Cars and Bids.